Buenas noches, tercera parte de la lectura For Granting a Voice de mi autoría. Months ago, when we began imagining the pavilion as an ephemeral container that might give closure to the intensive investigation process artist Shinpei Takeda has embarked on since he left Japan to live in Tijuana 6 years ago, we wanted to believe that we would be granted, one way or another during the process, a sensation not unlike that which in physics decants dispersed particles into murky, watery terrain. The conceptual process that gave body to this architectural artistic intervention kept revealing some of the edges and textures of what was to come. Nevertheless, I'm sure none of us foresaw the blind power to which our skins were exposed as we raised that strange cardboard shelter. Last night, breathing in the words of the two women whose voices submerged us in the desperation of the hours spent looking for a father or the numb cries of a wounded leg, we understood our work during the previous months. We realized the urgency laid out between their voices and our bodies. We understood the improperty that is a condition as unseizable as it is immersive, imposed over property, the improperty of aching memory. We understood the eagerness to latch onto the remains of our existence. We realized that only through speaking from an exposed language over the indelible edges of their wounds, it might seem possible to salvage the voices that serve as witness to the density of the unbearable quality of that this times always already pain. As if destiny had brought together a coincidence, I received another legacy yesterday's night, an article from Brazilian theorist Sueli Rolnik, in which she remembered an experience from her Parisian exile. Years after, that same young exiled remembered that, during one of her singing classes, her teacher asked her to choose a song on which to exercise her voice. Rolnik chose an old Brazilian melody without much thought. She writes, still touched by the memory, about the vital substance of her past. About how, as soon as she began singing, a silenced voice, almost forgotten, in which the vital substance of her past was nested, reappeared in her song. It was the voice of the body of her language. That afternoon, the harsh and unfertile armor that had taken over her skin since she had been forced to unsee herself in another continent through a language which her body didn't know, was shattered from the inside. Even after all those years away from her homeland, she knew her adopted language, French, had never been able to summon in her the vibration she felt facing the seat of her destiny. That night of the testimonies of that morning in Nagasaki, an insoluble silence dwelled on the pavilion. The wounds and scars our guests' witnesses bore both visibly and veiled followed each other through their voices. In the tangible weight between them, each silent breath shared by the survivors and the audience, it became clear that both women had found their voice and were granting it to us in that specific time and place. Jacques Derrida asked over and over again, what is that which granting promises? What can effectively be gifted through that gesture in action that tries to give to the other, not the remains of one, but that which will be subtracted from him, her, that which might possibly be granted out of what is no longer available, of the wound, the memory, the past. To grant that which one does not have, wrote the philosopher, would be the condition for truly giving. It isn't granting out the excess, but that impossibility which might give existence to the other. To receive others' wounds through the time of a body willing to grant itself to exchange would be a way to try it. But in exchange of what? Last night, Michiko and Sue granted their memories, the timber of boys born from the fathomless depth of a life in resistance, from the invincible soul of a body always already vibrating with the emotions that in both of them extracted their will to survive from existence. A cardboard pavilion, a material that seemed incapable of surviving the rain and weather that mark its life outdoors, considering cardboard has a great degree of absorption and or penetrability, stood still. The pavilion that housed alpha decay seemed to have understood that it is necessary to redo itself to be granted back again the remains. The testimonies that covered its outward skin as recorded audible vibrations, 100 tireless traces that had until then been completely illegible. The cardboard boxes that held the walls that gave body to Shinpei Takeda's Alpha Decay pavilion housed in themselves the breadth of the stories they housed. Held within their edges waits the true structural support of their stacking, drenched in the recovered voices of two Japanese women who managed yesterday to go back to Nagasaki's horror and grant us the hope of their return. Este es el final del texto. Yo curé el proyecto Alpha Decay, yo curé este pabellón con Shinpei Takeda y este texto fue uno de los resultados, diría yo, imposibles de no existir después de que presencié la plática de estas dos mujeres dentro del pabellón creado por Shinpei Takeda. Y no había otra cosa que hacer para mí después de escuchar a estas mujeres y hablar con ellas que escribir. Así que hice este texto, se lo envié después a Shinpei y él lo presentó a los editores que estaban trabajando sobre el tema de la reconstitución de la memoria atómica, un tema que es sumamente polémico y sensible en Japón y entre la comunidad japonesa dentro y fuera de Japón. Y sin haberlo dispuesto de tal manera, el texto que escribí aquella noche fue elegido para cerrar este libro que aquí les comparto. Espero les haya interesado la lectura y gracias como siempre por su atención. Buenas noches.